All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and I start with the S&P again today, which I think I looked at yesterday in the video as well. Is just saying it's a very tight range. This was yesterday's move. We were up slightly and just a lot of consolidation. I think this was kind of what I was expecting for the day. I was actually thinking the VIX might go up a little bit more than it did. Uh, with the Fed meeting on the horizon, right? I mean, I think the market really wants to kind of get some clarity on when the next rate hike is going to be, and also the balance sheet reduction, which we've heard a lot about, but we've really gotten no information on it. So, I think it's so far, I would call it resilient, that there really hasn't been much profit taking other than in a few different areas. I think I think a little bit in some of the FANG stocks, there's been a little bit of profit taking, but I wouldn't be surprised if we dip a little bit tomorrow, whatever the initial language is. I believe there's the press meeting tomorrow, so full meeting tomorrow, or live meeting. So if we go into what the Fed Fund futures are expecting for tomorrow, I think it's now, again, nothing for September. It's really just looking out towards December, which will be the next live meeting. And that's a 53%. So that's moved up from a 38%. So now we're pricing in about 53%. So, I think a lot of questions about why the financials have gone up so much. So we'll turn away from S&P futures, which have basically just done nothing. And then I'm going to talk about one other point too with the averages. But Nasdaq actually underperformed a little bit yesterday. Up 15 basis points, but kind of right where we were yesterday. So the overall, I keep saying the same things over and over, that the indices just are not really moving on a day-to-day basis. The one thing that I keep hearing is, oh well, we're due for a pullback because we've had such a run, and you know, this kind of puts things in perspective. When you look at, you could even go back to 831. Sure, we're grinding higher, we're making some 52-week highs, but from 831 to current, we're up 1.5%. If you go to the Qs, we're flat. So, sure, there's been certain areas that have done really nice. Small caps have been one of them. If you look at small caps, they're up 2.6%. So again, Qs for the last couple of weeks, while they've rallied the last week, we've had a little bit of a rally in the overall market the last week, but it's really been very slow and steady with no volatility whatsoever. So that's where I always like to start the video off, is just talking about the overall indices, which really I just don't think, it's just, I had this question in the trading room, I think yesterday, like, oh, it's time to take profits. And yeah, I think so, going into a Fed meeting. But there's certain positions, there's certain things that are moving, that I think there's opportunities in. This move in the financials, which has been very strong. We haven't seen just a ton of call buying and things like Bank of America, which you go to the daily chart. So I did get a question on Twitter, and in the trading room today. Why have these things moved so much? Well, first of all, they looked really. I mean, they all pretty much got oversold. The week of Irma, that hurricane. And you could see, for example, Wells Fargo. You kind of zoom in to where we were. We were oversold. We saw big call buyers. So these things, I think, just maybe got a little bit too cheap. Plus, if you look at the move in interest rates this week, TLT has sold off this week, right? So we've got to remember what banks like. They like when a steepening yield curve. So the fact that bonds, so again, here's Wells Fargo has made a move from 50 to 53. Keep in mind for tomorrow. So sorry, let me get it before I get ahead of myself. This is the move in bonds. So we've gone from TLT from 129 all the way down to 126. So this is kind of given a relief rally to financials, which we're probably due for one. Citigroup is pretty amazing. Citigroup continues to break out. So that's probably the strongest, one of the strongest in the group. Morgan Stanley has also had a nice move. You can go one by one; they've all pretty much, or just look at XLF, but a real nice hold of that 200-day moving average. For a name that had real good earnings. So, real good catch if you guys caught that one about that bounce off the 200-day moving average. But so I would watch these things tomorrow because a hawkish Fed will be good for financials, right? If they're going to raise interest rates, that should be good. You'd see financials rally. If they're dovish, if they start to mention things like the hurricane is going to bring down GDP, we're in no rush to raise interest rates, I would think that you're going to see the financials give back some of this big bounce that they've made this week. Just my thinking for what financials. Again, financials are one of the most sensitive for on Fed Day. So again, hawkish. You should probably see the financials hold up pretty well, maybe even rally. Dovish, I would think that they're going to get smacked. So we'll see what that holds in the cards for tomorrow. So that's the one group. Let me go ahead and just summarize the market. The telecom stocks got a major bid today on. This was probably one of the weakest areas of the market where it have been telecom stocks this year. You could see this big downtrend they've been in and big bounce today, up 1.9%. Even just 2 weeks ago, these things really went down. So the T-Mobile deal that was announced today with Sprint kind of gave them a relief rally. We saw a lot of call buying in Verizon and AT&T. I will tell you, I didn't follow any of that. I think they're still in downtrends. So a little deal activity helps, but not something that personally I want to go long right now, just based alone on deal speculation. So that was the best performer of the day. Defense stocks also did pretty good. We talked about the banks, the tech stocks that we talked about yesterday, small cap tech. I think they basically took the day off. There really wasn't a lot moving. There wasn't really a lot going on. Worst performers today were the healthcare stocks, particularly names like UNH. There was a little bit of put buying, but down 1.8%. So we'll see how this shakes out. Every time UNH sells off, it's been a buying opportunity. Notice you're just getting a move into the 50-day moving average on some implications about Obamacare being repealed and maybe another direction that they might be going in. So, could end up being a buying opportunities. But this was the worst group. I think XLV also pretty bad. But there is a healthcare ETF that's IHF, and you can see the damage that was inflicted today, down 2.3%. In that group, biotech was also off today. Chinese internets were down a little bit. Again, just kind of again risk off day. I really think. In terms of option activity, a couple things that we saw that were interesting. I looked at this name yesterday. I set this up on a T yesterday for AAOI. I talked about this pre-market. So I actually, I don't want to say got lucky, but I just looked and saw where resistance was on the chart and said, it's close enough. I was trying to hold my last piece of AAOI. So again, we saw calls right off. That was the first signal that we got of the day. I had already talked about that. That's what we do in the trading room on a daily basis is we talk about setups. So AAOI was really strong yesterday, and I was looking for continuation up to the top of value. Well, I got it. I'm completely out of that position. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do, which was get up about another $5 today. So it did end up higher today, but that's where I thought it would go. So a really nice day trade in AAOI, which I did more day trading than anything else today because I just don't want to hold a lot of risk into the Fed meeting. CBI, we also day traded really nice. Also, that was right off the open as well, or a few minutes after the open. Now above the 50-day moving average, so still in a downtrend, but real nice move. Somebody mentioned this name to me a few days ago, but CBI just aggressively, and when we see really aggressive options in this name, they went after both weeklies and the Octobers, so that also helped. We saw it a couple times. So real nice day trade in CBI. We saw a little bit of win calls. All the casinos did pretty well today as well. Win finished up 2.2%. So we saw a little bit of I think there were weekly calls in this one. PayPal, we continue to see call buying in PayPal. I believe a 52-week high today. I mentioned all the paper in the telecom names. NRG which we talked about in yesterday's call. Real nice continuation in that name, in this utility name. So they went after more of it. So this was the candle yesterday on aggressive option activity, and they followed through. And I saw that name twice hit today. And then I would say the other theme. Well, let me before I get to the last theme of the day that I want to talk about. Nice order in MIK. This is Michael's. This name has worked pretty well on option activity. So kind of the name is rallied and come into the 200-day moving average. So nice dip, I would say, in MIK. So up 1.5%. Not really anything to jump up and down about because the calls went up here. But here's the order that I thought it was a nice aggressive order, and going out to November, so you have a little bit more time than a front month trade in October. But I thought those went up pretty aggressively. So maybe somebody's looking to buy that small dip that I just showed. AABA. We also saw a couple buyers in this name as well. This name is on a 52-week high. It's it does have a big holding in BABA, but some calls purchased on a 52-week high. This name reports earnings in a couple weeks. Some GoPro, not going to talk about that. More Fold. This has been another repeat story. We saw some calls. What we saw yesterday and towards the end of last week is risk reversals, bullish risk reversals, where they buy calls and sell puts. Today they actually tacked on a little bit of straight October calls, but yeah, I mean they did. This was another 1,000. It should be 1K put sell. Still not right. 1K put sell. Okay, and then the last theme of the day was a lot of buying in the metal space. So just to look at this group as a whole, you can look at the XME ETF, which had some really nice performance a couple weeks ago, and has kind of trailed off a little bit. Which is fine. I mean, this is what happens with markets, right? They ebb and they flow. So nice swing up, retracement, swing up, small retracement, and we saw names like and I just talked about this name yesterday was SCCO, which is a copper name. We didn't. I don't think we saw any call activity in this one, but we did an FCX, which again, this was something that I talked about pre-market as a nice setup. So FCX. So I was 3 for 3 for day trades today. That was the other name that I traded, and I took off 75% of that position. So up 2.5%. And a nice move. And then there was other things like there was some U.S. Steel calls. Had a little bit of difficulty getting through value, but sometimes U.S. Steel is pretty good on option activity. Notice a couple weeks ago this thing couldn't get past the 200-day moving average, but again, just like that XME chart, a move up and a move into support. So X could make another run again I think at that 200-day moving average. That's a couple bucks ahead of it. I won't be surprised if that happens. And then Alcoa, they continue to go after Alcoa. I mean, Alcoa has just been an absolute beast, and they bought more calls again. So a lot of metal buying in different areas of metals, but that was all this afternoon. So I'm not sure what's up with that. Again, I always I do try to read into things and try to solve the puzzle. But it could be also that all these metals being bought going into the Fed, another group that's a little bit sensitive to what the Fed does. So, we'll see how banks hold up. We'll see if somebody knew something about these names because there's a bunch of them. I think is TS another name? Let's see. This is another name, right? Isn't this another steel name? TS. Yeah, steel producers. So this also saw some call buying. The TS trade was the October 30 calls going up. So very interesting. Before, also there could be something going on with Trump as well with the steel names, but a lot of steel names bought and a copper name, aluminum name also bought. So I find that was all this afternoon, by the way, and it kind of came in bunches towards the close. So that's today's option recap, today's market profile. I may do something tomorrow where I open up the trading room tomorrow to go over what's going to happen before the Fed announcement, maybe between 1 to 2 or something like that tomorrow. So be on the look for that. All right, have a great night. See you tomorrow for Fed Day.